Hello, this is David William Weissner, and this is episode 5 of David Speaks. Today I'm going to talk about music, what it meant to me, my whole life, and how it was coming to me. My first musical exposure was to the music of the 50s. It was, it was just incredible to me. My mother and father had all these 45 records of these little albums that we used to use back in the 70s. And I listened to a lot of them all the time on the record player. And they had a tape. I remember that very clearly. This black cassette tape with it was called 50 Years of Rock and Roll by Dick Clark. And he had a show on at one point that we just focused on acts. So the 50s music really meant a lot to me. It was beautiful. And my mother loved Elvis. That was her big thing. My father loved Walter. What is his name? Johnny Mathis, uh, Johnny Cash. All that music spoke to me. So I listened to it all the time. When I was 5, my mother bought a piano. My mother and father bought a piano for the whole family. And the three of us, my sisters and I, were supposed to get lessons. Okay, so this piano teacher told my mother I was too wild for lessons. I was a wild little kid. I ran around a lot of energy. I don't know why he did that. I'm a piano teacher and a guitar teacher, and I did that for almost a decade in my life. And I would never deny a child, especially for a stupid reason like that. Um, I've had autistic kids that I taught. I have kids with ADHD, different disabilities. I, I would never deny a child the chance to learn, ever. And so this man did, and it haunted me for decades. Meaning, I was mad at him, I hated him, I cursed his name. My mother too. I hated her for a while because I knew I had natural talent. I knew it, and so I did something that I had to do. I was 5 years old. I taught myself how to play the piano, and most people who teach themselves piano teach by ear, just by listening and figuring out things. But I was a reader. I loved to read, even as a very small child. That was my love, was reading. And my sisters were learning from the Schwab music books, which I used in my practice when I taught. They're still around. So um, I went through the books and I tried to follow it and figure it out. And I asked one of my sisters what the notes meant. And she said, the lines, this lines is called a staff, and he said the lines on the staff are every good boy does fine. And the first letter E, G, good B, B, does D, F, fine. Every good boy does fine. So that's how I learned what the notes were. And I said, what are the notes in the spaces? And she said, well, remember face, FACE. Those are the letters in the spaces. And that was all the instructions I got. And I just went from there. And I started teaching myself. Eventually, I learned chords. I knew the notes, and I just learned with a chord, the note with a chord. It was so long ago, it's hard to even remember, but I just figured out the chords. And I did a little bit of the left hand, but I got very proficient on the right hand. And I never got lessons in rhythm, really. So on songs that I write now, I make up my own rhythms, and some people say they're rather odd or hard to follow. I just do my own thing. And so I taught myself, and then I love to sing. So once I learned chords, then I would play the songs I liked when I was young, all the songs of the day. I liked Broadway shows. I Annie had great songs. Little Shop of Horrors had great songs. Fiddler on the Roof had great songs. All these just had a great. I love that. I love the 50s music I would play. I love Billy Joel, Elton John, Barry Manilow, all the piano players of the day in the 70s. And I made my own style. And I got better and better. Um, then, when I was 16, I wanted to take piano lessons for real. I was older. So my mother agreed to pay for them. And I went to a very good teacher in New York, uh, in New York, part of Staten Island. Went to his house, and I played for him. And he was interested. He said, "You have a very interesting kind of jazz classical style." Because I always improvised. I didn't know what it was called at the time, but I would play what people call lead sheets now, or they have fake books, meaning you just have the melody, the words, and the chords. And somehow I figured out how to play lead sheets and sing over it, and I would improvise everything over it, and that made me be a songwriter because I can improvise. So this teacher told me if I had started with him at 8, I would have been a classical piano player. I would have been like a star classical piano player, and I was pissed. At my mother and father, at this teacher. I was like, great, you ruined me. I could have done this. You had to start young. So I took lessons for like 6 months, and I don't know. I quit. I just quit. I didn't think I was good. He taught me a lot of classical songs, which I loved, and I took lessons for 6 months. You have to always give a child a chance. Everyone can learn. I've gotten over that anger that I had for the teacher and my mother because I became a different kind of piano player. I became a rock piano player, a pop rock piano player, an improviser, a singer-songwriter. Singing was so important to me as a child. It was my favorite thing to do. I did it. It made me feel like I was flying more than anything. I was young. I was very romantic. I used to think about the girls I loved at school, even in like 4th, 5th grade, 6th, 7th grade, whatever. I would fall in love with these girls at school. And I would have these romantic fantasies in my mind. When I would play love songs, I would think about them, about saving them from fires and all kinds of things. And I loved love songs the most. And I played them all the time and sang them. Then, when I was 19, I started writing songs. And I just did it naturally. I figured out chords and sang over them. And, a lot of people liked them. I thought they were good songs. Not great, though. I really didn't have confidence in myself as a musician because I was never trained. I never played with anybody else. When I was young, until definitely just some jam sessions, even my whole life, I really never played with other musicians. I like to play on my own. I would sit on the piano and play the love songs and play my songs. I had no ambition except for music itself, for the love of music itself. I didn't want to be a rock star. I didn't want to perform. I didn't think I was that good. Well, it was just for me. It was just for me. And, it kind of still is. Um, I've only played in my life. I've never played with a band. I've maybe jammed here and there with a guitar player or a drummer over my life with friends mostly. I had a friend in high school who was a guitar player, and him and his other friend, we played a few times together, just in the house. And in my life, I think I've played maybe 5 or 6 shows for people in my whole life. It's just me on the guitar or piano. And I was never sane when I played in public. It was never a dream of mine. I wanted to be a writer and a speaker, which I've become. A writer. I have a book out. It's on Amazon. It's called Bipolar Disorder Through My Eyes, a Memoir of Hope. And it's about my life. It's an autobiography. But I did music for the love of it. When I was in manic episodes, then it's not even courage. I'm not afraid to play in front of people. I just don't care. Um, then I would go on these rock star fantasies in my mind, I'd be delusional. I'd be like, oh, I'm going to be a big star. I'm going to be this. I played shows. I did open mics. It was very hard and difficult, even manic. I was very nervous to play those open mics. I screwed up some, made some mistakes. I'm 54 years old. I've been playing since I was 5. The only shows I've ever done have been in a manic episode, and there were like 5 of those shows. And I did maybe, I don't know, 7, 8, 9, 10 open mics. Some in Staten Island, some in Newport. I think I did one in Brooklyn. But I was always in a manic episode. As a sane person, I have no desire to play in front of people. Maybe a passing fancy, and that's it. But my desire as a child was to be a writer and a speaker. So I'm speaking right here on YouTube. I think it reaches more people. And, when I was a kid, I wanted to change the world. I had this sense that I had a destiny to make the world a better place. And I'm trying to, through my writings, through my speaking, trying to bring enlightenment, the way I see it anyway, to the world. So I played the piano for many years. Like I said, it was a private thing. And then when I was 26, I decided I was in college. I was fine. I was on my medicine. And I I decided I wanted to play guitar. I had a friend who I had met a few years ago. He started a band. I never really jammed with him, but we listened to each other's music. We enjoyed each other's company. He was a very good friend of mine. It wasn't really him that inspired me. I like acoustic instruments. Even to this day, I don't like electric guitar. I don't really like electric pianos, unless the only thing I have. And I like acoustic instruments, acoustic guitar, acoustic piano. I wanted to play other instruments. I wanted to play the lute, the violin, maybe even the flute. But life, illness, I hurt my hand. All these things got in the way. So now I just play piano and guitar. So when I was 26, I decided I want to take guitar lessons. And the only reason was this. I wanted to bring my music and my voice into nature. Where I grew up in Staten Island, I always like to go to the parks, the beaches, and the woods. And I had brought my little Casio keyboard over, but it was, it sucks. Not that Casio isn't a hell of a brand, but, it doesn't replace a piano, a real piano. So I wanted to learn acoustic guitar, and I took lessons at a place called Rustic Music in Staten Island. And they were very good, very nice people, and they were very professional. And I had a young guy who taught me how to play guitar. And and I picked it up quite quickly. And I took lessons with him about 7, 8 months. And he was good. He was just a young man. I was 26, maybe he was 20. And that's all he did. He taught guitar. He had 80 students. He worked hard back to back to make a living. It's very hard to make a living teaching instruments, as I know, because it doesn't pay well. So then I found a teacher. Somebody gave the name of a teacher who in my book I call Jim Cummings. Okay, and this man had a very profound effect on my life. I went to see him, and the first time I saw him, I recognized him. I said, wait a minute, I know this man, from a past life. That's what I thought. I know this man from my past life. Right away I knew he was going to be important to me. Jim Cummings is the name in the book, name I'll call him now. So Jim and I talked about what I wanted in music. He was a professor at a Wagner College and a college of Staten Island. Also, he gave lessons and private lessons. And so we started to talk, and he took out a classical guitar. But I had I had exposure to piano classical music because I loved it. I loved Bach, Mozart, Chopin, Beethoven, my big 4 favorites. But I never heard a classical guitar played before, not in person anyway, and it just blew me away. The beauty of this instrument, the delicacy, the sound. I was overcome with joy. I was in a rapture because I fell in love that day with classical guitar. So I stopped taking lessons with the young man at Rustic Music, and I started taking lessons with the professor Jim Cummings, and it was happiest times of my life. I love the sound of that classical guitar, and I still do. Okay, and we did learn classical. He taught me the classical lessons. The first song he taught me was a song called "Humming" by Ferdinand Corelli. I still remember it now. I still play it. I play it perfectly because I don't know. I was in such a state of deep concentration that I just played it and memorized it. And classical guitar is not easy. It's a lot harder than rock, And the things I did on the piano, which mostly just I improvise and have fun and sing. Uh, so I took lessons from him for about 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, and I learned, and I loved it. The lessons were so full of joy, and we used to laugh a lot. And it was an hour lesson. Sometimes he gave me for an hour and a half. He was such a generous man. The lessons were cheap, $25 for an hour with the professor. I don't know what they are now, but that was cheap even then. And we just talked. He was fun. There was, in music, there's something called ritardando, and it's when you lower the sound, okay. And he would say to me, we would read the music, and he would say, put a little retard in, put a little retardando in there, David. And my professor Jim Cummings was like 5'3", and I would say, Jim, aren't you a little retard? He would laugh every time. He had a good sense of humor, and he would. He was just a great guy, a great man, and oh God, sometimes I get frustrated when it was hard. Classical guitar is hard, especially for a novice. Very hard instrument to play. And I would play, and then I would go, fuck, shit, motherfucker. Ah, I fucked it up. And Jim would be like, lyrics by David Weissner. He said that all the time. I don't know if that's funny to you. It's funny to me. But, so I took lessons with him for a while. And then, the long story short, I hurt my hand. I tried taking piano lessons with his brother-in-law, who was a really great jazz piano player. Also, I had no desire to do anything but play. My musical aspirations were nothing but pure. Meaning, not that it's not pure to want to be in show business, but I never thought of myself as a performer or a show person. I wanted to do it for love of music. And so I was taking lessons with his brother-in-law, who is a great jazz piano player, still plays around the city, and I wanted to learn classical music. He had a classical training too, but he really was a jazz player. Amazing jazz player, great person, brilliant. We had the best conversations. And so I took lessons with him also for 6-7 months. Then I hurt myself physically in my hands. I was practicing 2 hours a day piano, an hour a day on the guitar, and I was very diligent in my practicing. I wanted to play the Chopin etudes, and that was my goal. My only goal in piano was to reach my potential. I knew I had talent, and I wanted to reach my potential. At that time I was in my 30s, and I was like, whatever, I'll just take piano lessons forever. I'll play piano as great as I can for nobody but me, maybe my girlfriend or my friend, and that's it. That was my inspiration. But I did something really stupid that I tend to do. I overdo things. So we were learning Alla Turca by Mozart, okay, and Turkish March, and there was a passage in that had these I forget what they're called, but like this, bum 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 bum. I had like this, and I did it so long and so hard for so many hours that I fucked up my hand, and I developed tendonitis in my hand. Okay, and that was the end of it. Meaning, I never could play classical piano or guitar again, and it devastated me. I was on the edge of suicide. I was so unhappy. I was depressed for months and months. I had to stop and quit my love. Music was my soul force, meaning it was my best friend. It's what helped me into love and to life. I didn't even sing. I didn't even sing because I was an accompaniment singer. I'm a singer songwriter, so I accompanied myself with guitar and piano. So what did I do? I tried to fix it. I went to a very good doctor in Manhattan, and he examined me. He thought there was a cyst in there, so we took an MRI. It wasn't a cyst. It was tendonitis, and he gave me a shot, a big needle right in my hand, and it helped a little bit, maybe for a month or two, but it came back, and he sent me for physical therapy, and I tried physical therapy, and nothing worked. So that was the end of my musical education, in a classical way anyway, and I was just depressed. So then I was talking to Jim Cummings, my professor. I don't remember if it was on the phone or I just went in to talk to him. And he lived near me in Staten Island, just a few blocks away. And he said, David, you got to teach. That's what you got to do. And I'm like, teach what? He goes, guitar. Teach guitar. And I said, Jim, I only took lessons for a few years. I'm not that good. He said, don't worry about it. Just start with beginners. You'll get better just by teaching them. And he changed my life that day because he gave me a purpose. Okay? A purpose to live and to love my music again. So what I did is, first, I wanted to do it, but I was very nervous. I really thought I wasn't good enough. I had a couple of friends who wanted to learn guitar, a female and a male. Okay? And I started with them, giving them lessons, and they paid me. And I drew up lesson plans, and I photocopied all this stuff, and I was very prepared. And I started to teach them. And then I felt confident enough to try to bring my teaching skills to the general public. And so I put up a sign in a restaurant near me. It's a Jewish and Italian neighborhood, a lot of Orthodox people there. And there's a kosher restaurant, and I put up a sign in the kosher restaurant, guitar lessons, and I put my number. So I got a call eventually, a few weeks later, from a family who lived a few blocks away with a 13-year-old girl who was a total beginner. And so I made the appointment for the lesson, and I got there. It was like 7:30. I got there exactly on time, 7:30, and everyone who knows me knows I'm extremely punctual, like to a fault. So when I did my lessons, when I did them for years, when I drove around to people's houses, if I said I'm be there at 8, when the clock turned 8, the doorbell would ring. Maybe it's my OCD. I don't know what it is, but I feel punctuality is respect for other people, and I meant it. So I got to their door. I walked up the steps. My heart was like going bum 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 bum, just beating in my chest. I was so fucking scared. I was like, this girl's gonna know I suck. She's gonna know I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I could barely breathe. So I rang the bell. The father answered the door, and I got my wits about me, and I said, hello, I'm David Weissner. I'm the guitar teacher. And that's how I started. And we went downstairs in the basement where we had the stand and the 2 chairs and the music, and I had everything planned out. I had lesson plans. I had things printed up for her. And she was really a brilliant student. She was very smart. She was shy and quiet. Very nice girl. Very lovely family. And that's when I started teaching. And something came over me, a feeling I had. Like almost a psychic premonition. And this feeling came over me, and I trust these things. I'm a very spiritual person. And it said, this is what you should be doing. And I knew it, and I did it for as long as I could. Um, so that was my first guitar lesson of a person I didn't know, which was a big difference. And I had her for 5 years, meaning she never got better than me. I was surprised. She was a smart girl. She studied, and she only left when she turned 18 and went off to college or Israel, wherever she went. And she was a great person, a great person. So that's kind of the history of my teaching. And then with piano, I again, I thought I shouldn't teach piano because I taught myself. I didn't know all the rules. I didn't know the music. I took real lessons with the guitar. I took lessons for, like I said, 6 months with uh, 6 months with a man in high school, and another 6 months with a man way older, way past that, when I was in my 30s. And that's when I hurt myself, I said. Um, so then Jim, my teacher, called me, or I talked to him, and he said, I have a friend who owns a music school in Staten Island. He's looking for a piano teacher. And I said, all right, you want me to do it? He said, yeah, do it. I never even heard me play the piano, Jim. He said, don't worry, you could do it. And I said, you know what? There are all those teachers there. I knew some of those teachers there. I was friends with a friend and stuff like that. And they all have master's degrees. They all been playing piano training, and they're training children. And I was very intimidated by that because I didn't think I was good enough. But he pushed me as usual. He said, I'll get you the job. Just go down and talk to the man. So I went down and talked to the man. Very nice man. The school was on Highland Boulevard. It's been there for years. And now it's closed. But he retired. But it had been there for like 30 years. And he just talked to me. And I said, are they beginners? Because, I don't know. I didn't even tell him about my lack of education. He knew I had a degree in sociology. I told him I don't have a degree in music. He didn't even ask me to play. He just took it. He took me because Jim recommended me. And that was how I got the job. And so the hardest part about that job to me, not only the intimidation of trying to teach piano, which I had never done before. I mean, I was a guitar teacher that I went door to door. I mean, I went to different people's houses with my car. And now I had to sit there, and it was on 2 days, 2 different days, 8 students each day. And I got paid $10 a student, cash. Okay? And not a lot of money. My biggest fear, because I was on so much medication from bipolar, that I was afraid I wouldn't be able to do it physically. To sit there for 4 hours straight, one after another. And it was hard for real. I was very intimidated by that too. But it was work for real, and I was able to do it. And I did it for a few years until I had another manic episode because a psychiatrist very stupidly took me off my medication and thought I was fine. We'll get into that in another episode. But so I taught there for many years, and it made me happy. The students were so wonderful there. Everybody was good. And the boss was great. I taught what I knew how to do. I wasn't intimidated by the other teachers. They were nice guys, but I knew they had more knowledge than me. I would teach the kids rock music and pop. They like Katy Perry and Lady Gaga. I would teach them that. I would bring them back to the old stuff, the Beatles and the Doors. I tried to give them what I tried to give them more than anything was a love for music, not just an education, a love for music. I gave them my presence, my mindfulness. I was always present for them. I didn't just get distracted. I didn't look around. I wouldn't talk on the phone. I gave them everything I had, whatever that was. Okay? And, I had replaced a girl that I knew from college, and she was on maternity leave. So I took over her 16 students right in the middle of their lessons. Some were more advanced. They played classical music and stuff. They were all different stages. And when she came back, he said it. He said, I have to offer all the students back to her. These are her students, and I'll find you more students. I said, all right. And out of the 16 students, all 15 out of the 16 chose me to stay with. And I'll never forget that. That's how happy that made me. That they loved me as a teacher, and I did love them too. So that's a little bit about my music education and what I went through. And I love music still. I still play it, but I've become like a listener more than anything. I love to listen to music for hours and hours and hours on my headphones. Right on these headphones. These nice Apple headphones. This is not sponsored. I just like Apple products. But I can listen all day. You know, I still like to play music, but I've become like a listener more than anything. Music is a big part of life. It makes you feel things. It gives you joy. It gives you cultural expression. There's music from all over the world. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you for listening to me. Have a great night. Goodbye.